Officer Ryan was used to silence. His house was far from the city noise. Every night after work, he made a cup of tea, sat in his old chair, and read the newspaper. Nothing exciting ever happened in this quiet town. But one night, that changed. It was 9:15 p.m. when he heard a knock. Soft, slow, almost like someone didn't want to be heard. Ryan walked to the door and opened it. There she was. An old woman stood there in a faded brown sweater. Her silver hair was tied in a bun, and her eyes looked tired. No, more than tired. Lost. "Is he home yet?" she asked. Ryan blinked. "I'm sorry, Mom." "Who?" She didn't answer. She just stared at him for a few seconds, then slowly turned and walked away into the darkness. Ryan stood at the door, confused. The next night, at exactly 9:15 p.m., the same knock came. He opened the door. She stood there again. "Is he home yet?" she asked, voice soft and shaking. Ryan frowned. "Ma'am, who are you looking for?" But she didn't reply. Like before, she turned around and walked away. This continued for a week. Every night. Same time. Same knock. Same question. Ryan asked around the neighborhood. "Do you know this woman?" He asked the local bakery owner. The man shook his head. "I've seen her. Always walking alone. She doesn't talk to anyone." Ryan felt something was wrong. He was a police officer. He had seen danger, pain, confusion. And the look in the old woman's eyes, it wasn't normal. It was deep, empty, like a storm had passed through her heart and left her standing alone in the ruins. On the 8th night, Ryan decided he would stop her. When she knocked, he opened the door quickly and stepped out. "Please, wait," he said gently. "I just want to help." The woman stopped. Her shoulders shook. She looked up at him with watery eyes. "He said he'd come back. He promised. He's just late, that's all." Ryan asked softly, "Who promised, Mom?" She whispered, "My son. He went to the war. He promised he'd come home before my birthday. I've been waiting." Then she walked away. Ryan stood frozen. He felt something break inside him. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat at his desk, looking through old files and town records, trying to find her name. Nothing. No reports. No missing persons. No family connections. The next night, he waited outside the door before 9:15. When the knock came, he was ready. He gently placed a warm blanket around her shoulders and asked, "Ma'am, can you tell me your name?" She didn't answer. Instead, she looked up at the stars and whispered, "He loved the stars. Said they made him feel close to me, wherever he was." Ryan felt a lump in his throat. She turned to leave, but this time, she dropped something, a small photograph. Ryan picked it up. It was old, edges torn, colors fading, but he could still see it clearly. A young soldier, smiling, standing next to the same woman, but much younger. Behind them, a small house with a red door. Ryan looked up. The woman was already gone. But this time, he didn't just close the door. He went inside, turned on his laptop, and began searching military records. He didn't know her name, but he had the photo, and a promise to keep. Something was wrong here. He felt it deep in his bones. Why was no one helping her? Why did no one even know her? And why was she still waiting, every single night, for someone who may never return? But most of all, Ryan wondered, what if her son never made it home? And what if she never stopped believing he would? Officer Ryan couldn't sleep that night. The old woman's words kept echoing in his head. He said he'd come back. He promised. Ryan sat at his desk, the small photo in front of him. It showed a young soldier in uniform and the same old woman, smiling, happy, alive. But the woman he met every night was different. Empty. Alone. He opened his laptop and began searching. He typed, "Missing soldiers, local veterans, red door houses." Nothing matched. He looked again at the photo. Behind the two, the house had a red door and an old swing. The number 42 was barely visible on the mailbox. Ryan paused. There was only one street in town with old houses that matched this look: Maple Lane. The next morning, he drove to Maple Lane. He passed every house slowly, looking at the doors. When he saw number 42, he stopped. The door was still red, but the paint was peeling. The swing was broken. No flowers. No sign of life. He walked to the door and knocked. No answer. He knocked again, louder. After a moment, the door opened just a little. A different old woman peeked out, tired, worn, but not the same one from the nightly visits. "Yes?" she asked, nervous. Ryan showed his badge. "Sorry to bother you. I'm looking for someone." An older woman, thin, white hair, always in a brown sweater. Ever seen her? The woman blinked. Then slowly, she opened the door wider. "You mean Eleanor?" Ryan's heart jumped. "Is that her name?" "Yes," the woman said quietly. "She used to live here, many years ago, with her son Tommy. Do you know where she is now?" The woman shook her head. "After the war, after Tommy didn't come home, something broke in her. She'd sit on the porch every evening, just waiting. One day she was gone. Moved away, they said. I didn't hear anything after that." Ryan asked, "Do you know if Tommy died in the war?" The woman nodded slowly. "Yes. Sadly. He was only 20. The town held a small service, but Eleanor never believed it. She thought the army was wrong. Said her son promised to come back. That he couldn't break a promise to his mama." Ryan felt a lump in his throat again. He thanked the woman and walked back to his car. The wind felt heavier that day. The sky looked gray. And inside his heart, something was changing. This wasn't just a job anymore. This was a story of love, pain, and memory. That night, 9:15 came. And like always, there was the knock. Eleanor stood at the door. Same sweater. Same look in her eyes. Ryan didn't open the door right away. He watched her for a few seconds. She was shaking. Then he opened it slowly. "Eleanor," he said gently. She looked up at him, surprised. "How? Do you know my name?" "I asked around," he said. "I want to help you." Her eyes filled with tears. "No one calls me that anymore." Ryan invited her inside. She sat down carefully, holding the warm mug of tea he gave her. He showed her the photo. "You dropped this. Is this Tommy?" She smiled faintly. "Yes, that's my boy. Always so full of life. He loved the stars, the cold wind, and ice cream after dinner." Ryan nodded. "He was a soldier." Eleanor's smile faded. "Yes, but he wasn't just a soldier. He was my heart." Her hands trembled as she spoke. "They said he died. But they're wrong. I feel it. Officer, a mother knows. I still hear his voice sometimes. Wait for me, Mama. I'll be home before your birthday." So I wait. I knock. Maybe he's there. Maybe someone knows where he is. Her voice cracked. Ryan wanted to tell her the truth. He wanted to say Tommy had died, that she had been knocking on a stranger's door all this time. But he couldn't, because she wasn't just an old woman. She was a mother who never stopped loving her son. That night, Ryan sat quietly after she left. His eyes were wet, his heart heavy. He opened his computer again. This time, he wasn't just looking for records. He was looking for Eleanor's story. He needed to find a way to honor her pain. And maybe, just maybe, help her heart rest. But something strange still bothered him. How did Eleanor return here? Why did no one in town know she was back? And most of all, was she even really back? Officer Ryan sat in his car, parked outside the station. The heater was on, but he still felt cold. Not outside, inside. Inside his chest, where Eleanor's pain had quietly settled. He stared at the photo again. Young Tommy, smiling. Eleanor, full of life. How had it all come to this? She wasn't just a confused old woman. She was holding on to something no one else could see. That night, Ryan made a decision. He would find out where she'd been all these years. Why did no one know where she was? Why was she suddenly back? And how did she find his door every night? The next morning, Ryan visited the town archives. The building was quiet. Dust floated in the sunlight from the windows. An older woman at the front desk greeted him. "Looking for something special, officer?" "Yes," Ryan said, showing Eleanor's picture. "Her name is Eleanor. She lived on Maple Lane. I need to know what happened after her son died." The woman nodded slowly. "I remember her," she whispered. "Poor thing. Everyone said she lost her mind when her son died in the war. She used to walk the streets at night, knocking on random doors, asking if anyone had seen her boy. Some people were kind. Others told her to go away." Ryan's heart sank. "She was taken to a care home eventually," the woman added. "A place called Rosehaven. But that was nearly 15 years ago." "Do you know if she's still there?" Ryan asked. The woman checked the records, then frowned. "She was, until 2 months ago." Ryan leaned in. "What happened?" "It says here, she went missing. They never found her." Ryan's hands went cold. Missing. He checked the date, 2 months ago. That's around the time she started knocking on his door. He left the archive and drove straight to Rosehaven Care Home. The building looked warm and quiet. A nurse at the front desk looked up as Ryan entered. He showed his badge and the photo. "I'm looking into a case involving this woman, Eleanor." The nurse's face changed instantly. "Oh, Eleanor, we still keep her room the same. She was one of our longest residents. Kind soul, never caused trouble." "Can I see her room?" Ryan asked. The nurse nodded. Inside, the room was neat and simple. A small bed, a shelf of old books, a picture of young Tommy on the wall, a coat folded on the chair, her brown sweater. It felt like she had just stepped out and would be back any minute. The nurse walked in with a file. "We searched everywhere when she went missing. No signs of a break-in. Her shoes and coat were gone. It's like she just walked out." Ryan asked, "Did she ever talk about her son?" The nurse nodded. "Every day. She'd ask if the mail came. She said he was coming back for her. On her birthday." Ryan's breath caught. Just like she told him. "What's her birthday?" he asked. The nurse looked at the file. "Tomorrow," she said softly. That night, Ryan sat at home, staring at the door. 9:15 came. And again, the soft knock. He opened the door. Eleanor stood there, her eyes a little softer this time. "You came again," he said gently. "I thought maybe tonight was the night," she whispered. He invited her in. This time, he didn't ask questions. He just sat with her, gave her tea, listened to her stories about Tommy's childhood, his favorite songs, how he used to make her laugh. Her voice was light, like the memory gave her peace. Ryan finally asked, "Do you remember where you were before you started coming here?" Eleanor blinked, then looked down. "I don't remember much," she said. "Only that I was waiting. Always waiting." Ryan's throat tightened. "Waiting where?" She shook her head. "Just somewhere quiet. Then one night, I started walking. I saw your light, and I felt safe. That's why I knock. I think Tommy might come here. I think he might come home." Ryan didn't know what to say. Because how could he explain it? A woman missing for 2 months. A memory that refused to die. A promise made decades ago. That night, Ryan didn't sleep. He sat by the window, watching the stars. He didn't believe in ghosts, but he believed in love. And something about Eleanor's love felt too strong to vanish. He whispered, "We'll find a way to bring him home to you, I promise." But deep down, something else worried him. If Eleanor had been missing for 2 months, then who else knew she was back? And why? Did it feel like time itself had brought her to his door? The next morning, Officer Ryan woke up early. The sky outside was still dark. He hadn't slept much, and his mind was still full of questions. But today was special. Today was Eleanor's birthday. And Ryan had made her a silent promise. He would make this day meaningful, even if her memory didn't hold on to it for long. He made a quick stop at a bakery. He picked up a small cake with white frosting and blue flowers. Then he visited a flower shop and bought a single yellow rose, the kind Eleanor once said Tommy gave her every year. As he pulled up to his house, he was surprised. Eleanor was already there, standing in front of his door, not knocking, just standing, looking at the sky. She turned when she saw him, and for the first time, she smiled before he said anything. "You remembered," she whispered. Ryan nodded. "Happy birthday, Eleanor." He guided her inside, sat her down gently at the table, and placed the small cake in front of her. Her eyes lit up. For a moment, she looked younger. Her hands trembled as she touched the rose. "This is what he used to give me," she said. "I know," Ryan said softly. Eleanor looked around the room slowly. "This place, it feels like home." Ryan poured her tea. "You can stay here today. We'll celebrate, just the two of us." They talked for hours. She told him stories about her younger days, her husband, her little house, the way Tommy used to dance in the kitchen. Her voice had hope, even though her eyes sometimes drifted far away, to places only she could see. Then, around noon, Ryan's phone buzzed. It was the care home, Rosehaven. The nurse's voice was tense. "Officer Ryan, I don't know how to explain this, but something strange happened this morning." "What do you mean?" "One of the staff found Eleanor's name carved into the wood under her old bed. It said, 'If Tommy finds me, tell him I waited.'" Ryan froze. The nurse continued, "We cleaned that bed many times. That carving was never there before. It's like it just appeared." Ryan didn't know what to say. "I thought you should know," the nurse said softly. "Thank you," Ryan replied and hung up. He looked at Eleanor. She was humming softly to herself, as if she knew something no one else could feel. Later that afternoon, Ryan decided to take Eleanor for a drive. He took her down the quiet streets of the town, past the school, the park, the old movie theater. As they passed Maple Lane, Eleanor suddenly spoke. "Stop here." Ryan pulled over. She looked out the window at a small, abandoned house. That's when she whispered, "That was my home." Ryan helped her out of the car. They walked slowly up to the front yard. The grass was tall, and the windows were broken. But Eleanor's hands touched the gate like it was full of life. She walked to the porch and pointed. He used to sit there, right there on that step, every afternoon. Her eyes filled with tears. "I waited for years. I sat by the window, watching the street, hoping he would come back in uniform, smiling like he promised." Ryan said nothing. His throat felt tight. "And when he didn't," she said softly, "something in me broke." She turned to look at Ryan. "But I never stopped believing. I knew he would come back. Maybe not as a soldier. Maybe not even in the way I imagined. But somehow, he would come." As the sun began to set, they sat on the porch. Eleanor held the rose close to her chest. Then, quietly, she asked, "Officer Ryan, what's your full name?" He looked at her, surprised. "Ryan Thomas Fields." Eleanor's eyes went wide. Her lips trembled. "Thomas," she whispered. "Tommy." She reached out, touched his face gently. "You look just like him." Ryan stared at her. "My father's name was Thomas," he said slowly, "but he died before I was born. My mother never talked about him much, said it was too painful." Eleanor's hand shook. "Your father was my son." Silence fell between them. Not the cold kind, but the kind that happens when something big shifts inside your soul. "You're my grandson," she whispered. Ryan couldn't speak. He didn't know how. Everything made sense now. The knocking. The stories. The way she found his door, night after night. Somehow, through all the fog in her mind, her heart had led her home. To him. That night, Ryan didn't sleep. He sat beside her as she rested on the couch, her breathing soft and steady. He watched her with a new understanding. She wasn't lost anymore. She had finally come home. The air was still that morning. Eleanor slept peacefully on the couch in Officer Ryan's home. Her face looked calm, almost like she had found something she'd been looking for her whole life. Ryan sat beside her, watching quietly. All night, his thoughts had raced. Could it really be true? Could she truly be his grandmother? He looked at the small photo Eleanor kept inside her purse. It was old, faded, but clear enough. A soldier stood smiling in uniform, holding a tiny baby. The woman beside him was Eleanor. And the baby had the same eyes as Ryan. His hands trembled slightly as he placed the photo back in her purse. When Eleanor woke up, she looked around the room, confused for a moment. Then her eyes landed on Ryan, and something in her face softened. "Tommy," she whispered. Ryan smiled gently. "No, Eleanor, I'm not Tommy. I'm his son, your grandson." She blinked slowly. "He never came back, did he?" Ryan shook his head. "No, my mother told me. He died in an accident, before I was born." Tears filled Eleanor's eyes. "I waited so long. I waited by the door. Every day." Her voice cracked. "And when no one came, I started to forget things. But my heart never forgot the knock, the promise." Ryan leaned forward. "You weren't just knocking on any door, Eleanor. Somehow, you found mine. I don't know how, but your heart led you back to your family." Eleanor smiled. It was a smile full of pain, joy, and deep love. She held his hand tightly. "You look just like him, the same kindness in your eyes." That afternoon, Ryan made a decision. He called the director of Rosehaven, the care home. "I want her to stay with me," he said. The director paused. "It's a lot of responsibility, Officer Ryan." "I know," he replied. "But I want her to feel safe. She's not just a case. She's family." They moved Eleanor's things to his house. He placed her photo albums on the shelf, her favorite blanket on the couch, and even brought in a small rocking chair from the care home, something she loved. Every evening, she sat by the window, humming soft songs. Some days, she remembered Ryan's name. Some days, she called him Tommy. But she always smiled when she saw him. One evening, while they were having tea, Eleanor looked up suddenly. "Ryan, can I tell you something?" "Of course," he said. She leaned in, her voice low. "Sometimes I see him, in my dreams, standing by the fence, smiling, and I ask him, 'Why didn't you come home?' And he says, 'I did, Mom. I never left your heart.'" Ryan's chest tightened. She placed a hand on her heart. "Love never dies, Ryan. It just gets quiet sometimes, but it never, ever leaves." That night, she gave Ryan a small envelope. "This is for you," she said. Inside was a letter. The ink was faded, but readable. It was written by Tommy. It was never mailed. "Dear Mom, if you're reading this, it means I didn't come home. I want you to know I never stopped thinking of you. I carried your smile with me every day. You were my light in the darkest moments. If my son ever finds you, tell him he was loved. Tell him I wanted to hold him. Tell him, you are the bravest woman I've ever known. Love always, Tommy." Ryan couldn't hold back the tears. That night, he sat quietly beside Eleanor. She had fallen asleep again, soft breaths filling the room. And in that moment, Ryan realized something. She hadn't come knocking because she was lost. She came because her heart remembered something her mind had forgotten. Where love lived, But just as peace settled in, the phone rang. It was from Rosehaven. "Officer Ryan, we think someone has been trying to reach Eleanor from another state. A man claiming to be her nephew. He's asking questions. Something about her having an inheritance." Ryan's eyes narrowed. Inheritance. Yes, something about land. Property that was never claimed after her husband died in war. He wants her back under their care. Legally. Ryan's heart dropped. "Why now?" he whispered. "Because," the voice on the other end said, "they just found out that the land is worth over $3 million. The morning sun peeked through the windows of Ryan's house. Eleanor sat quietly, humming to herself, holding a soft pillow close to her chest. She didn't remember much from the night before, but she remembered one thing. She was safe. Officer Ryan stood near the kitchen window, holding the phone in his hand. His mind raced. $3 million. Why had no one mentioned this before? Why now? He turned back to look at Eleanor, her white hair glowing in the morning light. She was more than a legal case. She was his family, his blood. And now, someone wanted to take her away. Later that day, Ryan drove to the local records office. He needed answers. Inside, he met a woman named Miss Clark, a kind middle-aged worker with sharp glasses. "I need to check land records from the 1970s, Ryan said. Miss Clark raised an eyebrow. "Any names?" "Thomas Grace. He was a soldier. Died in service. His mother's name was Eleanor Grace." Miss Clark typed quickly. After a moment, she looked up. Found it. She turned the screen. It was a property deed, acres of land in another state, left unclaimed for over 40 years. No one knew about this. Ryan asked. Miss Clark shook her head. The system back then was slow. If no one came forward, the land just sat. But now, with new digital records, people are starting to notice what was missed. Ryan's stomach turned. So the man who called wasn't just being kind. He was after the money. That evening, a black car stopped outside Ryan's house. A man in a suit stepped out. He knocked, sharp and loud. Ryan opened the door. "Can I help you?" Ryan asked. "I'm Peter Harris," the man said. "Legal guardian for Eleanor Grace. I have papers here to take her back to Rosehaven." Ryan frowned. "She's with me now. I'm her grandson." Peter's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Yes, we heard about that. How convenient. Just as the land papers were discovered." Ryan clenched his fists. "She's not some prize. She's a person. She deserves to be where she's safe and loved." Peter's tone changed. "That land belongs to her, but she's mentally unfit to manage it. Legally, I have the right to oversee it and her care." Ryan closed the door firmly without another word. He knew what had to be done. He needed a lawyer. The next day, Ryan met with Maria James, a smart, no-nonsense lawyer who specialized in elder law. "She's not just any woman," Ryan told her. "She's my grandmother. She deserves better than being used." Maria nodded. "We'll file for legal guardianship, but it won't be easy. People like Peter, they know how to play the system." Meanwhile, Eleanor had a good day. She remembered Ryan's name. She even told him a story about Tommy's first steps. But then, she looked out the window and asked a question that broke his heart. "Am I going back to that cold place?" Ryan knelt beside her. "No, Eleanor. I'm fighting for you." In court 2 weeks later, Peter stood tall, holding files and photos. "She has Alzheimer's," he said to the judge. "She can't make decisions. She belongs in a care home." Then Maria stood. "She may forget names. She may forget places, but she hasn't forgotten love. This man," she pointed to Ryan, "is her grandson. The son of the boy she lost in war. She found him again, not with her memory, but with her heart." The judge watched silently. Then Eleanor was brought in. She walked slowly, holding Ryan's hand. Everyone in the room stood still. Eleanor looked around, then turned to the judge. "I don't remember your name," she said softly. "But I remember my son. And this young man, he feels like home." Tears filled Ryan's eyes. The judge took off his glasses and spoke gently. "Sometimes the heart remembers what the mind forgets. I believe Eleanor is where she belongs." He banged the gavel. Legal guardianship granted to Officer Ryan Grace. Outside the court, Ryan hugged Eleanor tightly. She smiled and whispered, "Tommy would be proud." But just as they were walking away, Peter stepped close and said one last thing. "You won today, but that land, I'll see you in state court. This isn't over." Ryan didn't flinch. He looked at Eleanor and smiled. "You'll always be more than land. Your family. And I will never stop fighting for you." The days after the court battle were quiet but full of new challenges. Ryan had fought for Eleanor, and for the first time in years, she was at peace. But there was something about her that he couldn't ignore. Something was still missing. Eleanor's mind had been clouded by Alzheimer's, but she'd remembered things that Ryan never expected her to remember. She remembered the laughter of her son Tommy, his bright eyes, his love for her. Even as her memory faded, the love she had for her family never did. And now, the world was about to uncover something that would change everything. One rainy morning, Ryan sat by Eleanor's side in her favorite chair by the window. She loved to watch the birds flutter around the garden, even if she often didn't remember the names of the flowers or the birds. But today, something felt different. Eleanor was looking at him with a sharpness in her eyes that he hadn't seen in a while. "Ryan," she whispered softly, her voice barely audible over the rain. "There's something you need to know." He looked down at her, a slight smile on his face. "What is it, Grandma?" Her hand shook slightly as she reached into the folds of her old cardigan, pulling out a small, faded envelope. It was worn at the edges, clearly kept safe for many years. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. Eleanor's handwriting was something he recognized even though he hadn't seen it in years. She had written a letter that had been tucked away for God knows how long. "Open it," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Ryan took the letter and carefully opened the envelope. The paper inside was yellowed with age, but the words were clear. The letter read, "To my son Tommy, wherever you are, if you're reading this, know that I never wanted to leave you. I left you because I thought it was for the best. I was scared I couldn't protect you from this cruel world. I'm sorry, but what you don't know, and what I need you to understand, is that the land, it was never about money. It was a gift I was meant to give you, a way to honor you even after I'm gone. I hope one day you'll return, and I hope you'll understand why I did what I did. With all my heart, your mother." Ryan stood frozen, staring at the words. His chest tightened as he realized what this meant. The land that had caused so much tension wasn't just a plot of earth. It was a connection to Tommy, to the man Eleanor had loved, to the son she had lost in the war. His eyes filled with tears, but there was more to the letter. He turned the page, his heart racing. "P.S. Ryan, I hope you never have to read this letter. But if you do, know that you are my greatest gift. I gave you the love I couldn't give to Tommy. You are the reason I kept going. You are the future I dreamed of." Ryan's hands trembled as he put the letter down, his heart breaking. It wasn't just about the land. Eleanor had kept the truth of Tommy's death hidden, her grief locked away. All these years, Eleanor had been holding on to the hope that one day her son would come back. And now it was clear. The land had always been a way for her to stay connected to him, a memory of the boy she had lost. But what really tore Ryan apart was Eleanor's final words. He hadn't just been fighting for her to keep her home. He had been fighting for her legacy. That afternoon, Ryan sat outside in the garden, thinking about everything that had happened. The court battle, Peter's threats, the way Eleanor had stood strong despite everything she had lost. It was all connected. Eleanor wasn't just an old woman with Alzheimer's. She was a mother who had lost everything and fought to keep the only piece of her past that she could still hold on to. He realized something else. He wasn't just protecting her home. He was protecting her story. Later that week, Ryan called a meeting with the rest of the family, including Eleanor's lawyer, Maria. The air in the room was thick with tension. But this time, it wasn't the legal battle that mattered. It was Eleanor's memory. The sun was setting as Ryan stood by the oak tree, his heart heavy with the weight of the past weeks. The funeral was over, and the family had dispersed, but Ryan remained alone in the yard, staring at the tree they had planted in memory of Eleanor. He felt her presence in the rustling of the leaves, in the wind that whispered through the branches. The air was thick with memories, and he couldn't shake the feeling that she was still watching over him, guiding him, as she always had. Earlier that day, as they laid Eleanor to rest, Ryan had promised to protect her legacy, to honor the love and sacrifices she had made throughout her life. But now, standing in the silence of the evening, he realized that his promise wasn't just about keeping the land or maintaining the home. It was about carrying forward the lessons she had taught him. The importance of family, the value of resilience, and the depth of unconditional love. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the letter Eleanor had given him before she passed away. He had read it 100 times, each time finding something new in her words. The letter was not just a message from his grandmother. It was a final plea for him to understand her pain, her loss, and the reasons behind her choices. "I never wanted to leave you, Ryan," he had read so many times, the words still echoing in his mind. But sometimes, love means making the hardest decisions. The wind blew harder now, sending the leaves swirling around him as if in response to his thoughts. He closed his eyes, letting the breeze wash over him. The weight of everything, the court battle, the loss of his grandmother, the unraveling of long-hidden family secrets, had been overwhelming. But he knew now that it was all part of her journey, part of the legacy she had left behind. He took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. The stars were beginning to appear, faint at first, but growing brighter as the night deepened. It was a beautiful sight, one that reminded him of the countless nights he had spent with Eleanor, listening to her stories, her dreams, and her fears. And in that moment, Ryan understood. Eleanor's love had never been about the land. It had never been about material possessions or the things people could take from her. It had always been about family. She had fought for him, for Tommy, for everyone she loved. She had kept the truth locked away for so long, thinking it would protect them. But in the end, it was her love that had kept them strong. As Ryan stood there, lost in thought, a figure appeared in the distance. He didn't need to turn to know who it was. Maria, the family lawyer, approached with a quiet smile. She had been with him through the entire process, her calm presence a comfort during the darkest days. "We did it," Maria said softly, coming to stand beside him. "We honored her." Ryan nodded, his voice catching in his throat. "She always wanted us to remember, to understand why she did what she did. The land was her way of holding on to Tommy, to the family she had lost. And now, it's our turn to carry it forward." Maria placed a hand on his shoulder. "You'll do it, Ryan. She knew you were the one who could." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the wind, the gentle rustling of the leaves, and the distant call of birds settling for the night. It was peaceful, but there was an undeniable sadness in the air. Ryan took a deep breath and stepped back from the oak tree. "I should have been there for her more," he murmured, guilt creeping into his chest. "I should have noticed sooner, the way she was slipping away." Maria shook her head gently. "You did what you could. She was proud of you, Ryan. She knew you loved her." He nodded, wiping his eyes. It had been a long journey, but he had come to understand something important. Eleanor hadn't just left him a piece of land or a home. She had left him with a deep understanding of what it meant to love and protect those who couldn't protect themselves. She had shown him that love could endure, even in the face of the greatest challenges. As the stars shone above them, Ryan turned to Maria. "I'm going to take care of this place, Maria. Not just for me, but for Eleanor, for Tommy." Maria smiled, And he'll do it with the same strength and love she showed you. I have no doubt. Ryan smiled back, his heart a little lighter. The journey ahead would be long, and the pain of losing Eleanor would never completely fade. But he knew now that he wasn't alone. The love she had given him would always be with him, a guiding light through the darkest times. As the night deepened, Ryan stood by the oak tree, feeling a quiet sense of peace settle over him. Eleanor had been many things: mother, grandmother, warrior, protector, but most of all, she had been a symbol of enduring love. And now, as the wind whispered through the leaves, Ryan knew that her legacy would live on, not just in the land, but in the love they had shared. Her story would never be forgotten.